The first thing you saw when you walked into our house was the portrait of my grandmother. It was black and white, set in a heavy, ornate frame, but it felt alive. Her eyes, like polished jet stones, didn't just look out from the photo. They saw asterisk in asterisk. They followed you, a constant, pressing weight against your skin. That photograph wasn't a memory, it was a cage, and sometimes you could almost hear something rattling the bars. After Grandma Eleanor passed away, my father, Thomas, brought Grandpa Arthur to live with us. He arrived with a single worn-out suitcase, and that portrait. He hung it himself, a solemn ritual in the middle of our living room. The first time I looked into its eyes, a deep, primal chill seized me. I was just a child. I'd never even met her, but her gaze felt like it was peeling back layers of my soul, stripping me bare. I just burst into tears, completely overwhelmed. My mother, Evelyn, was furious. She pulled my grandfather aside, whispering, "Arthur, it terrifies Lily. Please, put it somewhere more private." Grandpa turned, his face a shadowed, uncanny echo of the woman in the frame. "This is Tom's mother," he said, his voice low. "Let him speak." My father stepped forward, trying to mediate. "Dad, it's intense. How about we hang it in my study?" Grandpa let out a long, weary sigh. "Tom," he began, his voice laced with a strange, old pain. "Do you remember the winter you were 3? You had a raging fever, and you kept screaming for fish. Your mother, she went out into a blizzard, plunged her bare arm into the frozen pond. Lost a finger to a pike that day, just to fry that fish for you. She gave pieces of herself for this family. And now, we can't even give her a wall." His eyes slid over to me, cold and accusatory. "Your grandmother held you the day you were born. We don't abandon our blood." He then retreated to his room, and the door closed with a definitive, final click. That night, huddled between my parents in their bed, I whispered, "Mom, why does Grandpa look so much like her?" My mother stiffened, her whole body going rigid. "They were cousins," she said, her voice tight. "He was obsessed with her. Forced the marriage. Some lines, they should never be crossed." After that, Grandpa became a phantom in our home, a silent ghost haunting the edges of our lives. Mealtimes turned cold and quiet. The tension was so thick, my father was eventually exiled to the sofa. The living room, and the entire house, belonged to the portrait. It ruled from its spot on the wall. At night, I swore Grandma's smile would shift, the corners of her lips tilting up into something sly, something knowing. One evening, my father tried taking the portrait down, but the next morning, it was right back in its place, perfectly level, as if it had never been touched. It was a silent, ongoing war. One night, my father, in a desperate attempt to reclaim some normalcy, cooked my mother's favorite meal, pork ribs, glazed in a sweet and sour sauce. She took one look at the table, shadowed by the portrait, and refused to eat. Defeated, he took the plate to Grandpa's room. From behind the closed door, we heard a sound, a wet, rhythmic crunch. It was like bones being pulverized between millstones. My mother shuddered, air face pale. "He can't possibly be eating that," she whispered. "His teeth, tough as iron." My father sighed, a little too quickly. A few moments later, he emerged from the room holding a spotless dish. He hadn't just eaten the meat, he had eaten the bones. We had to get out. We went for a walk, but the night air felt suffocating. The streetlights cast these sickly, jaundiced pools of light onto the empty playground. And then I saw it, a hunched form, blacker than the shadows, squatting at the base of a huge oak tree. As we got closer, it rose, shuffling toward me. Its feet ground the gravel like teeth, and a smell of wet soil, old meat, and something sickly sweet, like sarsaparilla, filled the air. It was Grandpa Arthur, but it wasn't. His eyes were completely black, glossy, and devoid of any light. His jaw moved constantly, chewing on nothing, a thin line of drool dripping from his chin. A dirt-caked hand stretched toward me, the fingers unnaturally long. "Lily," the voice that came out was a high, strained whisper, grotesque and thin, not his own. "Come to Grandma." I tried to scream, but only a pathetic whimper escaped my throat. His hand closed around my wrist, and a grave cold seeped directly into my bones, chilling me to my very core. Suddenly, the park was flooded with light. "Arthur, get away from her." My mother's voice was pure, undiluted terror. The creature, Grandpa, released me instantly and just melted back into the shadows beneath the oak tree. When we got back home, our eyes were drawn, as if by magnets, to the portrait. Grandma Eleanor's painted lips were pulled into a hard, victorious smirk. Her black eyes seemed to shimmer with a malevolent light, and they were aimed directly at Grandpa's closed door. We barricaded ourselves in my parents' bedroom. From Grandpa's room, we could hear two voices weaving together, his own rasping murmur and a high feminine whisper. They were carrying on an intimate, obscene conversation. Then we heard footsteps. They crossed the living room and stopped right outside our door. They just stood there all night, listening. At dawn, the hallway was empty, but on the floor, there was a sticky, dark puddle of something, and lying beside it was a tiny, perfectly clean white bone, curved like a miniature rib. My father's face was ashy. He whispered, "She's back," and pointed a trembling finger at the portrait. The photograph had changed. Her head was now tilted, her expression possessive, and in her painted hand, she was cradling a small, white, curved object, a bone from our hallway. My father broke down. Great, heaving sobs, shaking his entire body. She said she was lonely. He wept. She missed her Arthur. She wanted to hold her first grandson again. Just then, the door to Grandpa's room creaked open. He was sitting on the edge of his bed, but his head was twisted around at an impossible angle, and he was staring at us with the exact same victorious smile as the woman in the frame. The portrait was empty now, because its occupant had crossed over. She hadn't just returned. She had merged with the one vessel she had always used, always coveted. Our home was no longer ours. It had become a shared space with a fused, hungry past, a shrine to a love that had twisted into something monstrous. The portrait still hangs there. It's just paper now. The life that inhabited it has found a new, more permanent home, and we are the caretakers, trapped in our own house with its new, permanent residence. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more unsettling tales. Stay safe out there.